as she began to approach, that shimmering blade in her hand, not quickly or in a rush, just calmly taking paces in my direction. I once again felt that fear creeping up, and in the moment, with my arm still barely attached to me, I didn't really have any options. So I ran, beginning to dash up the stairs to the second floor as I heard her laughing behind me. "That's good, Mr. Bunny. Run," she exclaimed as I took off, making my way to the second floor and running down a hallway, making as much distance away from her as I possibly could, trying to buy some sort of time, maybe for my arm to heal, maybe because I was just scared, I don't know. "You need to stop moving so much," Nylea's voice called out to me. "You're not making healing this any easier." "Oh, I'm sorry, Nylea. Unfortunately, I'm not in a stand-still sort of situation." "I realize that. Just try to do your best." "I know I am," Nylea replied, as I ran down the hallway, as fast as I could, my arm still throbbing with pain, as I began to hear her voice, the voice of Alice, echoing through the halls. "You know, Mr. Bunny, there are a lot of things that people do that just confuse me. Or, rather, should I say, that I simply disagree with. But before that, I bet you're wondering why you can hear me so clearly. Well, that's because, in my mage space, my voice can come from everywhere. So don't worry, Mr. Bunny. Just because you can hear my voice doesn't mean I'm close. But it also doesn't mean I'm not close. So stay on your toes. I wouldn't want you to die too quickly, Bunny. That wouldn't be any fun," she said. Just hearing her voice, I could still see the smile on her face as I ran down what seemed like endless hallways, one after another filled with nightmare statues and paintings of death and despair. Every hallway unique in the horrors that covered the walls, but the same in their overall design. Nothing seemed to lead to anywhere but more of these endless hallways and rooms with doors, some open, some closed. Looking inside of some of the rooms as I passed, they seemed to be filled with fairly normal things. Bedrooms, small libraries, things that you'd find in any typical high-class house or mansion, at least I guess. And nothing seemed to be helpful in any sort of way. Now, Mr. Bunny, back to the story. There's one story in particular that always bothered me. Have you ever heard the story of the scorpion and the fox? It's a rather silly little story. I actually found it offensive. Her voice echoed through the halls. It goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a scorpion who was stuck on one side of a river, staring to the other side, as he wanted to cross. But surely if he tried to, he would drown. And then along came a fox. The scorpion stopped the fox, asking him, "Could you please ferry me across to the other side of the river?" The fox replied, "Of course I won't. You're a scorpion. If I try to take you across the river, you'll sting me." To which the scorpion replied, "Don't be ridiculous. If I stung you, then you would die, and then we would both drown, and I wouldn't reach the other side. So you're safe." The fox replied, "Well, I suppose you're right. So hop on my back, and I'll swim to the other side." And so the scorpion did. The fox swam into the river and began to paddle to the other side, kicking its paws in order to make distance across the river. But as they reached the halfway point, the fox felt a sudden pain as the scorpion stung him, suddenly feeling the sharp pain and immediately being affected by the poison now coursing through its system. The fox began to feel weak and unable to paddle. "Why?" the fox replied, looking to the scorpion on its back. "Why did you sting me? Now we'll both drown." To which the scorpion simply replied, "Sorry, it's in my nature." And so both the scorpion and the fox drowned in the river, unable to reach the other side. Her voice billowed through the halls as I kept running, trying to find some way to turn this situation around. As suddenly a bright purple blade streaked through the hall, tearing its way through one of the walls in front of me, basically drawing a line through the entire hall. Luckily, my reflexes were quick enough, ducking down and barrel rolling under it as my armor clattered across the floor, the pain in my arm kicking up as I slid across the surface of the hardwood floors, the blade finally streaking to its end and dissipating back into one of the walls. As Alice's head popped its way out of one of the nearby doorways. "Quick reflexes, Mr. Bunny. Let's see if you can keep it up," she said as she began exiting the doorway, still taking slow, methodical steps in my direction, as I pulled myself up again and once again began running in the opposite direction, trying to get away from her. As I turned left down the following hallway. "Do you know what I find offensive about that story with the fox and the scorpion?" Alice's voice said. "Quite frankly, it's a lot of things. So oftentimes when you hear these kinds of stories, there's an obvious moral to them. The problem being that the moral is twisted, being filled with, quite frankly, offensive lines of thought, trying to categorize evil by very existence. And when you really read into them, more so than what people really want you to when you hear the stories, the truth of humanity really dawns upon you. You see, Mr. Bunny, people tend to categorize evil based on whether or not it's good for them, whether or not it's common to them, whether or not they themselves believe in it. Really, people simply put themselves in a box, a nice, neat little box that contains themselves and everything that they believe. And then, by dint of locking themselves in that little box, they determine that everything outside of it is evil or bad. Just the same as human beings tend to define anything that's dangerous to them as a symbol of evil or darkness. And it's just not true. Scorpions aren't evil. There's nothing treacherous, underhanded, or conniving about scorpions. They're just another creature that exists. Surely enough, they can sting you. It's certainly enough dangerous, but that doesn't make them evil. In reality, the scorpion would have stung the fox long before they ever touched the water, if it was going to sting them at all. It wouldn't wait until they were halfway across and take itself along with it. That's just silly human think, Alice said. Silly human think that people use to categorize anything that's bad for them as evil. No different than the story of the big bad wolf. People are frightened of wolves because wolves can eat them naturally. But wolves aren't evil. They're just animals. They're no different than people. Offer them an easy meal and they'll take it. They don't look at us any differently than they look at a deer wandering all alone by itself. It's just a meal. The truth is, all of it is just there to justify our evil, the evil of humanity, in which, by simply calling something else evil, we're able to justify any evil that we commit against it. Because, truthfully, that's all it takes. Once you have something declared evil, then you can do whatever you want to it, and no one will bat an eye. Kill all the scorpions you feel like. Scorpions are bad. They're evil, right? So long as they're bad for people, you can call them evil, and kill them all you like. Wolves, bears, lions, and countless other creatures. Humans kill them left and right, and don't feel bad about it. In fact, many of them take great joy in it. Hunters that journey into the woods, guns in hand, hunting foxes and wolves, bears, and all the other creatures of nature, killing them one after another. Sometimes for food, other times just for the furs on their back, to decorate their homes, severed heads on mantles, preserved so that they never deteriorate, an eternal reminder of the prey that they killed. And they're not even ashamed of it. They represent them proudly, showing it to all of their friends. Look at this animal I killed. Do you see its severed head on my mantle? Isn't it impressive? Regaling you with the thrill and excitement of their kill, showing you the mutilated remains of their victim with pride, with smiles on their faces. And yet, very few people stop to call the hunter evil. If given a choice, I would trust the wolf long before I would trust the hunter who killed him.